out there, everyone, and welcome today. We're getting ready to gain some fresh ideas today on how to engage audiences from every angle and to learn what matters in 2014. Marlis Arnold will help us navigate these waters today, so thanks for tuning in. It's so important to thank our sponsors. We couldn't do these webinars without them, MCCA, Advantage Boston, and Onstream Media. They continue to help us deliver these educational topics to you free of charge. All TSNNE webinars, as you know, are brought to you by Onstream Media, the leader in multimedia webinar and webcasting services. Onstream Media is a leading online service provider of corporate audio and web communications, including webinar and webcasting services. Onstream Media's innovative webinar platform, Visual Webcaster 4.0, allows event managers to easily produce, schedule, and invite attendees to highly interactive, live, and on-demand webinars that can be accessed via a desktop or a mobile device. No downloads are ever required, and the solution can scale to support tens of thousands of attendees. The platform has been ranked #1 by top 10 reviews and is being used to power today's event. To learn more about Onstream's products, please visit onstreammedia.com. Another round of thanks goes out to Advantage Boston and the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority. They own and they operate the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center and the Heinz Convention Center. I'm from the Boston area myself, and I can testify firsthand that they represent all of the unique benefits and advantages of bringing an event here, including state-of-the-art facilities, first-class hotels, unique history, culture, and top-notch services, including free Wi-Fi throughout the BCEC and the Heinz. Now, allow me to introduce our speaker today, Marlis Arnold, exhibit marketing strategist and author of Build a Better Trade Show Image. She's the founder and the host of the Exhibit Marketers Cafe and the Trade Show Insights blogcast. We can't wait to get started, so Marlis, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Arlene. And I would like to introduce our two panelists today. Our first panelist is Bill Sell, who has spent over 36 years in events and media management. He currently heads up event development for the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, the first venue organization in the U.S. to actively create their own conferences and trade shows. As managing partner of Advisor Communications, he's been counsel to several media and event companies in the book industry, biotechnology, broadcasting, and marketing services. Bill's past leadership experience included 7 years as Vice President and General Manager of Comdex in Las Vegas, the development and launch of CBIT America and the Vaughn events, with responsibility for audience development, program creation, and event sponsorship and sales. Bill also served as Vice President of Events with Fidelity Investments, Fidelity Capital, Seaport World Trade Center, Boston, and as VP of Planning and Development at IDG's World Expo with ComNet and Macworld Expo as two of the key product groups. He's a frequent industry speaker on benefits of face-to-face marketing, and Bill is also founding member of the Society of Independent Show Organizers and past chair of the New England chapter of the International Association for Exhibitions and Events. Our second panelist, Corbin Ball, CSP, CMP, MS, is an international speaker, consultant, and writer that helps clients worldwide use technology to save time and improve productivity. With 20 years' experience running international technology meetings, he's now a highly acclaimed speaker with the ability to make complex subjects understandable and fun. His articles have appeared in hundreds of national and international publications, and he's been quoted in the U.S. News and World Report, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, USA Today, Fast Company, PC Magazine, and others. Corbin serves on or has served on numerous hotel, corporate, convention bureau, and association boards. He's the only person to have received both the MPI International Supplier of the Year and the MPI International Chapter Leader of the Year awards. Corbin was named as one of the 25 most influential people in the meetings industry for 2012 by Successful Meetings magazine, having received this award 4 times previously. So welcome, Corbin and Bill. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To be here.
Well, let's start out, first of all, talking about our focus is engagement, but we've got to boil it down, first of all, to attention spans. And author Sally Hogshead, who wrote the book Fascinate, says that humans now have the same attention span as goldfish, which is a whopping 9 seconds. So if you feel like you're having trouble getting people's attention, that's why. Everything, our culture, the way everything works now, people want and expect everything on demand. And even if you get their attention, you've got to create some kind of a connection or you're going to quickly lose it within that 9-second time frame. So part of the key to that is to create active participation, which increases learning and retention. If you can tell a story or get your audience involved, they're going to be much more likely to engage with your brand or your event. So what I want to do is we're going to start talking about engagement. I want to go to our first poll so you can get involved in our engagement here. So the very first question is, which communication format do you prefer? Do you like audio, video, or written communications? So just click on your answer. I'll give you just a few seconds here. All right. I think probably everybody has had a chance now. I'm going to take a look here. Wow. Okay. I'm just going to jot down the answers here, and then I will share them with everybody. But I will tell you, video is by far the winner. Let me post this. Video at 64%. Written comes in second place at 29%, and audio at only 7%. So, that goes to show that people, there's a variety of ways that people like to be engaged with, and our answers here are, video is the big winner. So let's take it to question number 2. Which method do you use most often to communicate with your attendees, whether you're a show organizer or an exhibitor? Which of the 3 methods do you use most often? I'll give you just a couple more seconds. Interesting. Take a look here at the results. 88% are using written communications, yet 64% of us said we prefer video. So there's a breakdown there between how people like to be communicated with and how you are communicating with them. So we're going to give you a lot more ideas today on ways that you can communicate with people. I also want to remind you at this point that you could submit questions. You've got a button there that you could submit a question at any point as we go along. We may take some of the questions throughout, and then we'll also have a special period at the end for Q&A. And then again, a reminder, the hashtag is TSNN webinar if you're tweeting about this. All right, so we're talking about engagement. So what do we actually mean when we say engaging content? What is it? Well, basically, to boil it down, it's useful, valuable information that provides your audience with fresh perspectives and also inspires them to take action, solving problems or implementing what they learn. Basically, your goal before the show is to inspire the feeling that this is a can't-miss event, or if you're an exhibitor, that you have a can't-miss exhibit. So the first step is that you've got to get clear on your message. I mean, if you don't have a clear message, it doesn't really matter how you're communicating. You're still not going to connect with people. But once you have that clear message, then you can infuse that into all of your communication tools, all the different types of things we're going to talk about today, and create that emotional connection with your audience. It really starts by knowing your audience, first of all, understanding what they want and need, and then making sure that your message resonates with them and is really, communicating what they're looking for. Another way to look at it is, for those of you that use Twitter, you understand this, but if you're not someone who's on Twitter, that basic premise is that all communication has to be 140 characters or less. So if you really think about it, in order to communicate in a tweet, you've got to boil that message down to the really core essence of what you're trying to say. And you may think that 140 characters is not much, but sometimes there are really profound messages that are communicated that way. But it all comes back to making sure that you've got that core message. And so another way to reframe it is to really think about how tweetable is your event or your exhibit. One way that you can create content and engage with people ahead of time is using crowdsourcing, which really gets people involved and gets them invested in the event. And Corbin, I know you've got some great examples as far as crowdsourcing for funding and voting and all different kinds of things. So can you share a few examples with us, please?
Sure. I think this is a new development in the whole social media component. It's a sharing economy that has come in, and crowdsourcing is being used to broadcast ideas. One of the things to be able to create events, to solicit ideas in advance of what should be talked about. The South by Southwest conference for the last several years has been doing this, but other sites out there such as allarideas.org or IdeaScale are some of those that are means of people to show organizers to get a conversation going about what people want to talk about, what are their ideas, and this can be used to some benefit in doing it. You can also, in terms of crowdsourcing and crowd sharing, to review events. You can use them for funding and promoting events. Even there are sites as People Funded or Pickpocket and others that if you're trying to raise money for a public event, these sources are available to do that. And even to, for example, I came across a site the other day. It was an interesting one. It's called Stereo Pill. And what it is a means of people crowdsourcing a playlist for the banquet or for the different events, the music events that are happening there, that people can come in and what do you want to play for this? What do you want to hear it? And so even down onto the level of what type of music is desired, these are all part of that sharing economy that's happening. And even down to there's sites such as Easy Nest. If you want to share a hotel room when you're going in and pay half the price of the room there are lots of ways that these things can happen with that.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard of some of those examples yet. So, Bill, do you have any examples that you've seen as far as crowdsourcing?
Well, a lot of it comes from the social media networks that folks are on. I've seen when you have the engaged core group, if you're able to ask them to just reach into their local networks. It could be through their groups on LinkedIn. It could be on their Facebook pages. But you can get some amazing promotion on behalf of your programs just by asking folks and giving them a little bit of information. The whole idea of being able to retweet something that's out there. I don't have to write anything. I just click a single button and it can go out. And there are unique applications out there, as Corbin was just saying. GaggleAMP, GaggleAMP is an example where you get your members, you get your customers to all sign up, and through just one click or two clicks, you can actually broadcast out to multiple larger organizational lists there. And it's all done because of the relationships that the people who are starting the conversation and sharing that conversation, it's their networks. And, of course, if the profile of that person, the first person is correct, their network should still be relevant and correct as well.
Well, and I think that there's so many different ways to get people involved, and like we were saying, the whole idea is the more people that are sharing the message and talking about the event, then it's just going to snowball. I know that IMTS did a video. I don't know what you would call it. It wasn't exactly a contest, but they invited exhibitors to contribute videos that they called Convince Them in 60 Seconds. And so exhibitors were making these 60-second videos to try to convince people why they should come to their booth, and then they basically crowdsourced and aggregated all of those videos for attendees to watch. I want to mention at this point that the resource guide PDF that you all have the opportunity to download, if you haven't already, there's a link in there so that you can actually go and see some of those videos. But, that's just another way that you can get people involved, and the more people that are involved, the more the word's going to spread. Another aspect of engagement in the before stage is personalization. And this has come a long way from what we think of as the old-fashioned form letter where it just plugs in, dear so-and-so. There's a technology called variable data printing that can customize everything from the message to the headline to images. If you look on the examples here that were provided by Mailprint and NextPage, there are two different magazine covers, and the one on the left, the green one, you can see the postcard there says Aloha Shana, so it actually incorporates the recipient's name into the cover graphic as well. The magazine on the right, it's too small to see, but all the little chat bubbles are a simulated chat between the recipient and the company sending the mailer. So, those are just two examples. Again, there's some more examples that I've got in the resource guide that you can download. But basically, the idea of using personalized marketing communications, Cap Ventures did a study and found that it increases response rates by 36%. And why is that? Well, people love to see and hear their own name. So, anytime that you can connect with them on a personal level, it's going to be much more meaningful. And some companies are even taking this to the next level where they use personalized URLs or what's called pearls and send people to a customized landing page. So, like, you would get this piece in the mail, a direct mail piece, and then it would then guide you to a personalized web address where you would go and land on a page that would be customized specifically for you. So, there's so many options for that. Corbin and Bill, what have you guys seen as examples of personalization?
Oh, this is an area that I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on. It's from personalized mailings, but personalized websites, but also just interactive signs. I was just in Honolulu this last week and saw some digital sign advancements that will recognize, as you go up to it, it will recognize your gender, your rough age, your mood, and then will serve information based on that advertising information or further information based on who you are walking in front of it. So this is going to get down to a very high level of personalization.
I'm not sure if I find that cool or creepy.
Well, it's kind of it's Minority Report kind of creepy in some ways, but it's coming, and then you have areas with the facial recognition technology that are happening. There's one technology I think we're going to see a huge explosion in these this next year. It's iBeacon technology. And
we're going to discuss that in depth here in just a few minutes, actually.
Okay. But that will really add on to the personalization component of it as well.
Definitely. And we've got some really cool ways that can be personalized. Moving on, talking about audiences, when you're communicating and you've got all these great messages and you're personalizing and you're focused on all of the different ways that you can communicate, you've got to keep in mind that you've got a wide variety of audiences. You've got attendees and potential attendees. If you're a show organizer, you've also got exhibitors and potential exhibitors. You even have past attendees and exhibitors who aren't necessarily new. They're not prospects, but they may not have yet registered to attend this year. So there's a lot of different layers just within that. But then you've also got multi-generational. There's a lot of discussion about Gen Y, and one reason is because, Gen Y is the up-and-coming generation that is raised on the Internet. I mean, most of them have no memory of life before the Internet. So they're wanting things that are very interactive. They want it to be fun and entertaining, and they do like the personalization as well, because they want to feel like VIPs and they want to feel connected. I think a lot of times we tend to think that the Gen Ys don't want to come to in-person events because they're so digitally inclined, but actually if you can build that relationship with them first and building that connection, then coming to the actual live event and meeting people in person is going to be just the next step for them. And also, in addition to the generations and the different types of audiences, then you've also got an international audience at a lot of shows. So, there are a lot of different layers of people that you need to engage.
And Marlis, on the side of an exhibitor, they usually think of, well, it's just these people coming by at my booth, and as I'm looking at audiences, an exhibitor really is looking at 4 different distinct pools, and if they use the same kind of a marketing funnel, they've got the general public who they have no idea who's out there as a potential attendee. Then you've got the whole category of suspects, people who show up and they obviously meet the demographic profile. We have our vertical industry show, and everybody attending meets that kind of a profile. But as you go further through the funnel, then you get to the prospects, people who actually have stopped and talked to you. Every one of the messages for these different groups are different. And then as you look at the customers, when you get to the bottom of that funnel, it should be a very different engagement all over the place with them, and you need to remain engaged with them for a lot longer. So, the audience category, when you're trying to figure out what is the right message for the audience really is so many different pieces, and that's one of the hardest parts here, is to actually map out a strategy with detailed elements for every one of these different audiences.
Exactly. Well, and that's where it goes back to the personalization and also knowing your audience and your core message. I mean, those are all the pieces that need to be figured out, and then figure out how to address the various audiences and the various profiles within that. So good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Well, let's move on to talk about during the show, because there's lots of cool things that can be done here. But I want to talk, first of all, again, staying on the idea of audience. Bill, you have a great example of an actual experience you had recently at PCMA talking about virtual audiences. You want to share that with us, please?
Yeah, and it's actually the use of the word virtual that somehow 10, 15 years ago we started talking about the online audience being virtual. And at the PCMA Conference, Professional Convention Managers Association, it is event managers in Boston last month, about 4,000 of those folks. And I was in an overflow room for one of the keynotes, and the moderator on stage in the primary room was talking about how we have a virtual audience, and there are actually 2 different overflow rooms. What was interesting is that we're hearing and getting a video stream live, but what's unusual was in this setting, the people in this virtual audience there actually were talking to each other out loud and commenting. And when the moderator for her second or third time referenced this virtual audience, and we'll take questions from the virtual audience, a couple of people spoke up quickly and said, we're real people here. We're not virtual. Virtual is the games world. It's the video games. It's the movies. It's where it's not real. And what we have to continually remind ourselves is that with our events, we have an online component and we have a face-to-face, an offline component, O2O. With the online component, we're talking to real human beings. We're talking to customers. We're talking to potential customers. But they're not virtual. They're real buyers. They're real people. We have, hopefully, enough information about them so that we're actually addressing them with something of relevance. And the continued use in our marketplace of this virtual audience and virtual trade shows and things, we need to get away from that, because if you are going to put a person into a buying position, into a buying condition and mode, they're not virtual. It's no longer a virtual purchase. It's a real purchase. And we shouldn't distinguish things with that word. So as you cross it out there with just one slash through it on the screen, I think it should be completely erased from our memories, the word virtual, and start talking about online and offline audiences.
Well, and I think another example of that is, to think, just because somebody can't attend in person doesn't mean that they're less of a prospect or that they're less engaged. The Super Bowl is a great example of that. They have about 80,000 attendees that are actually in the stadium, but they have 108 million that watch the event on TV or online. So
they weren't virtual fans. Those were
they're not virtual fans. They are very honest to goodness real fans. So that's just another example of the fact that don't take any portion of the audience for granted.
And don't message as though it's taken it for granted.
Exactly. Good point. Well, let's do another poll question here real quick, talking about online audience and participating when you're not actually there. Have you ever participated in a tweet chat or some other kind of online conversation, been engaged with an event that's tied to a particular show? So I'll give you just a second there. And I'm going to preview the results. Oops. And so 75% of you have. So, that shows right there that the online audience is really growing and that there's a lot of people that are participating in that way. All right, so back to our slides, talking about video show dailies. Bill, this is an area that I know you're an expert in. Would you share with us first of all, we know, back to the beginning, we know that 64% of people on this call said that video is their preferred method of communication. So explain how a video show daily works.
Well, way back at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about engagement, and one of the worst things we do as a trade show organizer community is we will pummel the prospect and beg you to register for the event 5, 6, 8 times in the week, and we do it for 3 or 4 months leading up to the event. And then when the show starts on day one, we completely turn off the rest of the world audience. If you didn't make it to the city in person, I'm going to ignore you. And from that point forward, we only focus on the folks who are with us in the city. Things like a show daily gets printed and handed to the people as they get off the shuttle bus and come in the front door in the morning. And we completely leave out all of that content that is in that printed publication for the rest of your community. If it's an association, you could be dealing with 80, 90% of the people in the membership pool might not be there with you in person. If you're an exhibitor, you could be dealing with all sorts of suspects, or the people who you think would be qualified at some point, or the prospects who are somewhat qualified, or your customer sets. And if they didn't come see you at the event, I'm going to tune you out completely. So a couple of years ago, we created these video show dailies, and knowing that people will watch short videos, we created simple video interviews and put them into an email format, because the email was the most common tool used in the marketing of events leading up to the event. And we take the same look and feel and put it out to that full audience at about 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So a show that opens on a Monday morning at 6 o'clock on the Monday morning, if it's 100,000 people in the database, 20,000 showed up, that 80,000 people, they get up in the morning knowing that the event is happening. We've been hitting them for the last few months frequently. So they get up and they're going to work, and they didn't come to your show in your city. But we still want to carry the content and the message, the relevance to them. So a quick hit, 2, 3, 4 little videos that are in there, a couple of articles, and a lot of links. And the way this one is designed here with forward this email to your friends, to your peers. And, yeah, I couldn't make it to this event in Chicago, but let me forward this off to somebody and talk about why I am still relevant as this part of the audience. So the video show dailies, very simple to set up. It does take a little bit of planning in advance, but the most important part is the engagement that is able to continue with the full audience. And those videos can be repurposed. They can be resent to folks right after the show, 2 months later, 6 months later, whenever. They remain relevant. And it's the format, it's the marketing plan that drives this, as opposed to just looking at, let me deal with people on site and then try to re-engage the folks who didn't come in at a later date.
Well, and like you said, there's a lot of different ways to repurpose that video. Actually, in the resource guide PDF, I also have a link to, funny enough, a video interview that I did a while back on tips for using videos at trade shows, either for the show organizer or for the exhibitors. So, there's lots more ways that video can be used. But let's move on, talk about another technique is called gamification, which is just basically a big fancy word that means making something ordinary into more of a game or a challenge or a contest. And so, for example, here, and this doesn't have to be high-tech. I mean, we're going to talk about a couple of examples here using apps, but I actually, again, in the PDF, there's an example. The New Media Expo had a real low-tech idea. One of their exhibitors did a make-your-own infographic, and so it was a printout, and people just colored in and designed their own infographic, and so that was a way of kind of gamifying and making some level of engagement. But the example here, the NAMM show used in their app, they did a show tour and treasure hunt where people, the participants would go around the show floor and collect codes at various stops. They had to complete the task and then enter the code into the app, and then it would keep score for them. So that's one way. Another way, CES just last month took this to a whole other level and used the iBeacon technology that Corbin mentioned earlier, so that when you got close to the target, I guess you would say, it alerted you on your, the app would alert you on your device. So, Corbin, why don't you go ahead and fill us in at this point as far as what iBeacons are? Everybody's probably heard about them, but I think a lot of people still aren't sure how they work.
This is a really interesting new technology that we will see a lot more of. The event guide app developers are fully in the process of bringing in these into event guide apps. And it's really low-power Bluetooth transmitters. They can extend up to 50 meters in distance. These are inexpensive. The beacons themselves can be less than $10. You put them up, and you can, from that information, interact with mobile devices. And in the case of the Consumer Electronics Show, they just wanted it's such a huge show. There's so many different locations. They wanted to encourage people to go through and see more of the different segments of the show floor. And so they put there was a scavenger hunt essentially using iBeacon technology, where with the phone app, as they went into these different areas, they would get a badge, and that if they got all the 8 badges for the 8 major areas, then they won a prize. And so it was an interesting way of using this new technology to do that. It's going to, but when you start talking about engagement, though, there's a whole range of additional possibilities with this that you can. For example, if you've downloaded the app, as you're going into the registration area, you can be notified of you. Welcome to the area. Your badge is being printed out in station number 6. It connects with that. Or even for lead exchange, or for measuring dwell time in exhibit booths, or for a whole range of wayfinding capabilities, or providing information about what's around you. The list is going on and on. This is a very exciting new technology. We're going to see a lot more coming.
Well, and kind of back to what you were talking about earlier, only maybe on a little less creepy level, an individual exhibitor could have that where it would greet people as they walk up to their booth.
Yes. For example, if you want to know, you could serve information. An exhibitor could serve information if it's the recipient needs to approve it. It's something that is an opt-in, but I see that it would be tied into the mobile event app, and this could be used for the gamification component of it, as the CES did, or to provide additional information about what's around you, or to get discounts from the different restaurants in the area as well. There's a lot of different ways that this could potentially do it.
Well, and another thing, too, CES also did an audio tour where they had audio clips, short audio clips from various sponsors, and the attendees could listen to those. But I could see that taken to another level by using iBeacons. So, again, rather than the attendee actually going in and clicking on the name of the exhibitor and then getting the link to the audio, it could also be using the iBeacon, whereas they approach the booth, then the audio, they would be alerted that, hey, there's an audio tour for this booth, or even a video tour,
right.
And having that all connected as well.
And there's going to be a fine line between being barraged by every booth you go by that they're going to be pushing some information at you or some discount. But I think that this has great potential in this next year or so. We're going to see a lot of it.
I agree. And moving on to another kind of related area, what I think is really cool, I haven't seen it really done much at shows yet, but it's called Augmented Reality. And the photo on the left, a lot of you may be familiar with, because if you've ever gotten an IKEA catalog or if you've gotten one recently, they're interactive. So now you can't tell really well in the picture, but laying on the floor there is the IKEA catalog, and then you hold up the device, and then you're able to see that piece of furniture sitting in your room. So the blue chair there on the screen is not really physically in the room. It's augmented reality. It is, unlike Bill's audience earlier, it's virtual. But so that's one application, and I could see exhibitors using that a lot in their booths. If there's, big equipment that you can't actually physically bring to a show, or if there's some reason that you need for people to be able to see how something looks or how it works. Lego is also using this technology. They have a code on their boxes in the store, and so if you hold the box up to a kiosk, then it shows you what that whole project will look like in 3D, and you can turn the box around and see the different angles and stuff of whatever the project is that's in the box. And also I have links to both of those in the resource guide as well. So that's one application. And then the idea on the right, I think, is really clever. It comes from the Sunshine Aquarium in Tokyo, where they created this app that had visitors being guided in using GPS from various points around the city, but their quote, guides were these virtual penguins. So the penguins that you see there on the screen are not actually in front of the camera walking down the street. I mean, those are all just on your screen. But as you're walking, the GPS is actually guiding you, but you're seeing these cute little virtual penguins waddling along in front of you. And they said the engagement from that app was huge because, again, it takes it back to the whole gamification. It's not necessarily a contest, but it's making it more fun and entertaining. So, I think, again, there's a lot of different applications for that. Corbin, any other examples you'd like to share on that?
I think that we're just also scratching the surface on this. Google Glass is one of the most common ones that you're starting to see things where you layer on additional information based on what you're seeing, and it could be in form of audio or video or GPS data and so forth. And there are great opportunities, potential opportunities for that. Not everybody may not want to wear a computer on their face, but I think that there are new technologies that are going to assist from smartphones to NFC rings to other forms of wearable computing that will assist in augmenting the reality out there with that. And so it's eventually it's going to be, instead of Google Glass, it'll be Google contact lenses that will layer that information on there down a few years. But the ability to do that and to make it a game, to have product demos. Forbes magazine just recently had a cover where, using the app, the speaker came alive and presented what he was going to be talking about in the magazine and advances of augmented reality for that. So you could take a paper, a magazine, for example, or any type of print collateral, and you can make it come alive. And this technology is inexpensive to do. It's essentially you register the picture that you want to come alive, and then with an augmented reality firm, and then using that app, it will automatically sense that and open it up and come to life. So there's just a lot of potential interesting ways that you can engage people on a different level, because if you are, as the product demo example where you say you have a picture of a boat, let's say, and then you can move the paper around so this boat is streaming across the water, and then you can start analyzing and going inside the different layers of the boats and looking at them at all different sizes. And so I think augmented reality has a great potential on a bunch of different levels.
I agree.
And what you're using to drive those are iPads, our desktop computers, our iPhones, Android, Windows platform. People have those devices in their hands already. It's not difficult. You just have to put the program together.
Right, and we're showing the wearable technology, the Google Glass here in the picture, and all the other devices Corbin talked about, but those are not required to do this. Like you saw, the Penguin app was just on an iPhone. So, there are a lot of things that you can do now. A lot of what we were talking about are things that are coming. That's why we called it What Matters in 2014. These are the things to keep a lookout for. But there are ways that you can do it now. It's not something that's, it's not distant future anymore. It's, the world of Star Trek is soon going to be here if it's not here already. But let's talk about after the show. And I want to remind everybody, too, go ahead and submit your questions. Feel free to go ahead and submit if you have a question for any of us, or if you have comments or any thoughts, go ahead and enter those, and we'll get to those in just a minute. But talking about after the show, here your goal is you want to extend the experience. The problem has been in the past that so many times, you've got this 3 or 4 day event, and people are highly engaged, and then everything stops. And so the idea is to build community, an ongoing community. And, social media is good for part of that, but there's so much that you can do beyond. You want to basically create a year-round community and drive desire for people to attend in person next year, whether they were able to be there this year or not. You want it to be something that is a 52-week event, not just a 1-week event. Bill, you have some good examples of that, talking about creating a 52-week calendar.
Absolutely. And the same way you had created the video show daily program, and you're going to have cameras and do some video recording at an event, the biggest shame in this industry is we have incredible amounts of excellent content with all of your industry's best at the event, and 30 people might be in the session room. That content should be video recorded, even if it's just a simple camera in the room and a microphone on the camera, not even plugged into the wall. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you look at the kinds of videos that are out there on YouTube that people are watching and are engaged in, it doesn't have to be broadcast quality anymore. If you can make it stronger, better quality, people really appreciate it, and the engagement time is longer. But it is easy to start capturing what you've got, and then you develop your marketing plan to spread it out. Back to our traditional audience recruitment program, 4 months before an event is when a show organizer typically starts the recruitment process, and we start hitting a brochure. We'll hit with an email invite at a slower pace, and then it accelerates at the 90-day mark, and then gets even busier as you get to 30 days with the crescendo of 3, 4, 5 messages in a week. But we may not have to do so much effort up front if what we do is record stuff and piecemeal spell this out or send out the information to our community for 52 weeks. The Content Marketing Institute has lots and lots of free articles online, great stuff there, and they talk about curating your content and create that marketing plan that shows 12 months and start sending it out. So that show daily that you did, do a wrap-up preview Tuesday after your show, and then maybe a week after that, so 2 weeks after the show, again, another one of these go out on email. And quick stories, quick articles, 30, 50 words, plus the video link. And the community, especially the people who didn't go, now understand a lot more about what they've missed. So you're planting the seeds for next year's attendee. If you're the exhibitor and not the organizer, same kind of thing works to re-engage with everybody who stopped by. All those famous leads that you gather in the booth and do nothing with. Trust me, I've seen it many, many times. This would be the place to start using those names and those leads. If you've got email addresses, hopefully, because we talked about personalization, you don't just get the email address, but you get first name, if nothing else, so you can at least try to personalize things. And then send a little bit of information. Industry content doesn't come across as traditional marketing. It's not junk mail when you're sending them some real content. And that's what's the most important part here, is to really spell out how I'm going to get content to these people.
And exactly, because you're staying in front of them. You're keeping on their radar, but you're not constantly sending them marketing messages. You're giving them, way back in the beginning when we talked about the definition of engaging content, it's giving them valuable information that they can actually use. So it's giving them, and like you said, it needs to be, bite-sized, not, massive 28-page white papers or something, but give them small, kind of the drip method throughout the year, and just keeping people informed. And, I agree with you. I think that one of the most valuable assets of any show, whether you're the show organizer or an exhibitor, is all of the content. For an exhibitor, one of the best things that you can do is keep track of what are the frequently asked questions in your booth, and then use those as the way to create content throughout the year on your blog or in social media or in your newsletter, whatever. It's kind of like live in-person market research.
Well, it wouldn't take much in your booth that you've spent all that money to build anyway, or if you're a show organizer, do it in the registration lobby or underneath the branding of your show someplace. Just hold up an iPhone to one person on your staff and ask them the FAQ questions that come up there. And, it's a frequently asked question. Tell me about this. 60 seconds or less. You're holding up the iPhone, quick and dirty, and it doesn't have to be a Vine, so it doesn't have to be just a handful of seconds, but you've got the content. You don't have to send it out while you're at the show. You just have to capture it then.
Right.
And copy it over, put it up on YouTube. It's really easy to do. Use Vimeo if you want to have a little less commercial look and feel to it. The tools are free. Upgrade a little bit if you want to have no ads on these sites, and you can brand things. And I'll gladly work with anybody who's on the webinar today that wants to follow up. We'll do one-on-one discussion on how to start one of these programs, because you have so much of this content in front of you at the event, and it's a shame to let the event run without having captured it.
Well, one of the things you look at in terms of events, most events are major content generators, and it's taking advantage of all that content, all the speakers, all the testimonials that can be given on, and the one thing in video, as we've discussed, is far more compelling than a page of text can ever be. And my recommendation is you just keep them short, less than 3 minutes, and you record them in HD. We're carrying HD cameras in our pockets now, in our phones. Record in HD, and these can be great add-ons to extend the life of the meeting throughout that coming year to promote next year's meeting.
Well, and talking about another way to extend the life of the event, in the old days, like 2 years ago, when event apps were first coming out, they were pretty much standalone. So, like, you would have XYZ Show 2013, and then when that show was over, the app basically died, and then you would have XYZ Show 2014 app the next year. Well, now there are multi-event apps which allow for seamless transition from one event to the next, or if you're an association that has multiple events throughout the year, again, there can be multiple all-in-one app. So you see on the screen there, you'll see there's 2 different apps listed, and you just click whichever one you want and download. So if an attendee, if somebody is attending more than one, they can download them all and have them right there. Plus, it offers the ability to interact, to post follow-up documents, have an ongoing conversation, all within that one app. So, Corbin, what are you seeing for trends with the multi-event apps now?
This has been a real growth in the last year with this. It just was. What's happening is that apps are being expected for all sizes of events now. And a corporation, for example, or a large association may be running dozens, in some cases hundreds of meetings a year for some corporations. And it's just simply too costly to manage, to build a separate app for every one of these. And so you have companies that have come in, Quick Mobile and Double Dutch and Crowd Compass and others. Most of the major, I call them Swiss Army knife event guide apps, companies are building this process so that you download it once, you give the show managers or the organizers the ability to really drag in and drop the different subcomponents of that multiple event guide app you want in it. So it makes it a much faster, easier turnaround. It reduces the cost very substantially of building separate apps, because you really have a template that you deal with, and it's all branded, it looks good, it's secure, and yet it's very fast to turn around, even for large and small meetings. And the benefit to the attendee is that if they are coming to many of those events from that association or from that corporation here, all they have to do is download the app once, and then they just look up the specific conference, and so they're used to it. The navigation component of it becomes a lot easier to use from everybody's standpoint.
Yeah, it simplifies everything. Well, we're going to move to questions here in just a second, but I want to remind you, if you have a question, please go ahead and submit it now. But I love this quote. I first heard this as it refers to social media, but I think it definitely applies after all the things. I'm sure that your brain is just spinning from all the ideas we've discussed today. But remember, you don't have to play with all the toys, and it's not recommended you play with all the toys all at once. So take baby steps. Think about, it all comes back to knowing your audience. What are their expectations, which, they are changing continually, but, what does your audience expect? What would they be interested in? For some shows, the whole idea of augmented reality and wearable technology is nothing that would even, get them excited. For other shows, it's going to soon be expected. So, know your audience, understand what they want, and then the focus is to nurture the relationship, whether you're a show organizer or an exhibitor. You want to nurture that relationship and talk with the attendees, not at them. And I think that's what you've seen today in all of these different kinds of tools is there's so many ways to engage in conversation and not just constantly be pushing things out at people. I'm going to switch over to our final poll question. Which idea from today are you most excited about pursuing? Keeping in mind the don't play with all the toys. You may have like 3 of them that really excite you, but pick the one that you're most excited about and click on that, and I'm going to give you just a couple more seconds. All right. Let me take a peek at the results here, and then I will post them. So, Corbin and Bill, any last thoughts from you before we move to questions?
Well, just the calendar helps you spread it out. And everybody looks at their marketing program, and it all seems to be compacted. And if you spread it out over 12 months, if you're looking from event to event, it doesn't have to be a whole lot of heavy lifting on any given day. A little bit this week, a little bit next week, maybe even take a couple of weeks off after an event. It doesn't, again, you don't have to do all the toys at once, but if you start using 1 or 2 apps and, take 90 days to try one engagement channel out and then switch it up, maybe add something to it, have somebody else in your team work with you on it, whether you're a show organizer or an exhibitor. It definitely can be done, and I can tell you that the audience will react differently once you start engaging them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting to see here that by far the winner of the day is gamification, apps, and iBeacons. So, I think personally this is an area that I'm most excited about. I recently went to a workshop that was talking all about iBeacons and augmented reality, and I think it's really a cool technology. Like Corbin said, it's not that expensive. It doesn't have to be, but it's definitely, it can have a lot of power to really engage with people. So let's go to our questions. And I also want to remind everybody that if you joined us late or you want to go back and if you didn't get a chance to write everything down, there will be a replay. So check back at tsnn.com/webinars, or we'll also be sending you a link to the recording. All right, just a couple of questions so far. Corbin, does iBeacon require an Apple environment?
No, it doesn't. That's the benefit. Is it is also available for Android. The big thing that's happening with that is NFC has been around. Near field communication has been around for some time, but it did not go. Apple has not embraced that, and so it was of really limited use. iBeacon, I think, is significant, is because the major players, all sides, are embracing this, and that's why I think you're going to see this really big growth in this next year.
Well, and I agree. I think that it's just still kind of at the beginning of the learning curve, but once people catch on, it'll be a lot more popular. I've changed the slides so that now you can see our contact information for myself and our two panelists. So if you have additional questions that we weren't able to answer today, go ahead and feel free to contact us later. We have one more submitted by Michelle Bruno on Twitter. She says, "Oh, Grasshopper, Bill Sell, your dream of capturing and releasing content at events is so good. Why don't organizers do more of that?"
I think a lot of it is it's a fear of what it's going to take, and that they think 10 years ago, 2-3 years ago, as to what it really took. But as Corbin said, we're walking around with HD cameras in our pocket. We've got them in our bags with the tablets out there. It's easy these days to record this stuff. Video cameras don't even need SD cards or videotape. You actually have the hard disks on them, and you just put it in there, a simple tripod in the room, and you can record it in HD format. And there are plenty of very simple online tools to be able to process this. But knowing what you want to do with it, that's, again, back to that calendar, and how do I spread it out over time, keeps it from being overwhelming. When we think of, I've got a show of 120 sessions, and every one of them is going to be 3 speakers, and just think about the amount of content I'll have. Well, don't worry about what you're going to do with it. Just capture it first, and then you can pick just 2 or 3 of them, 10 of them. It doesn't have to be everything.
Well, and Michelle, I think one thing I would recommend, this is what I do for my own blog and podcast. I plan out just a quarter at a time. I don't try to do the whole year. I mean, I may sketch out, basic themes for the whole year, but as far as actual, nuts and bolts planning, I do just a quarter at a time, so it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. So, it's one of those things where if you just sit down and spend a dedicated block of time, it's much more manageable. I'm just going to check one more time. I don't see any additional questions at this point. Like I said, feel free to contact any of us afterwards, either via Twitter or through our websites. If you like this webinar, please share it. We talked a lot today about sharing and engaging. And then thanks again to our sponsors, MCCA and Advantage Boston, as well as Onstream, for providing this wonderful webinar series with TSNN. I want to thank Corbin and Bill for being our panelists today, and I want to thank everybody for listening. And we look forward to seeing what you do to stay engaged with your audience.